I'll try it again. Good evening. I'd like to open the February 14th Valentine's Day 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by an introduction of the commission. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm Ken Stevens. I'm chair of the commission. Penny, you want to introduction?
Absolutely. Penny Kessler,
Doug Hume, alternate.
Robert Walsh, alternate.
Kitty Grant, Linda Curtis,
Andy Carson.
Bob Laker. Bob Laker.
Hi, Bob.
I do not see him.
Who's on the
Staff.
screen? With an open mic,
They've been muted.
thank you.
Staff.
Beth Wagner, Director of Planning.
Chuck Anders, attorney for the commission.
Nancy LaValvo, recording secretary.
Dave McCollum, land use coordinator.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing for 17 Whitney Road. Applicants Frank and Judith Saunders, 830G affordable housing, 43 units. And
Kitty,
Penny.
to appear February 7th and February 11th, 2023, public notice. The Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on the following application, February 14th, 2023, at 7 p.m. in Conference Room B of the Municipal Center, 1 School Street, Bethel, Connecticut. Frank and Judith Saunders, 17 Whitney Road, under Section 830G of the Connecticut State Statutes for affordable housing application for a 42 one-bedroom units and associated site improvements. The property is located in the RR10 zone and can be found in the assessor's records as map 14, block 16, and lot 23. Application information can be found in the Bethel town website. The public may send comments via regular mail and email to landuse@bethelct.gov. Parking for hearing is located to the rear of the building. Ken Stevens, chairman.
Thank you. And before we open up for the applicant, Mr. Andrews has some comments for us.
In regards to some legalities as how the meeting is being conducted. In regards to our procedures.
Sure, this is an application under 830G of the Connecticut General Statutes. It's a little bit different from your normal application, only if in the event that there is a denial and approval of conditions and an appeal is taken, then that means the burden of proof is on the commission. If the applicant takes appeal to show that the decision was necessary to protect substantial public interests and health, safety, and other matters that we commission can reasonably consider. That those substantial public interests outweigh the need for affordable housing and that they can't be addressed by reasonable conditions. So that is that's sort of been the lay of the law, lay of the world for the last 30 years or so. But it's important for the public to be aware of that in these types of applications, that those are sort of the factors that the commission will be considering in determining whether or not to approve the application. And other than that, I assume you'll follow the normal format that the public know first, and I mean the applicant goes first, then you have open up for public comment.
Thank you very much.
And just to note for the record, the following correspondence is located in Google Drive. If anyone wants to read it in regards to the following, there's a memo in there dated 2/14/23 by myself, the planning and zoning official. We have a memo dated 2/13/23 from the town public utilities director. There is a memo dated 2/14/23 from the fire marshal. A memo dated 1/17/23 and 2/13/23 from James DeMayo, our engineer. There's an affordable housing memorandum dated 2/9/23, a copy of the Town of Bethel Affordable Housing Plan, And public correspondence from Cynthia McCorkindale, Elgin Avenue, and Nancy Sudik from Ridgedale Road. And if any of the commission needs copies, I did make some hot copies if you want to pass them down. If you need more, let me know. And that's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Pat.
So I'll start for the record, Ken Slater. I'm a partner from Haller and Sage, and then municipal, and environmental law group. And my friend Attorney Andrus stole some of my thunder where I was going to briefly summarize what 830G is all about, and obviously did a very nice job of doing that. Only thing I would supplement it with is that there's a case that was decided quite some time ago. And some of the early applications, an applicant would always come in with an application to change the regulations to fit whatever they were proposing as an 830G project. And then, as Andrew said, if that application to change the zone was denied along with whatever site plan accompanied it, then the burden would shift from the town. An application was filed in Berlin, and it was a subdivision application, and it proposed a density that was substantially higher density than what the zone required. And they simply submitted the subdivision plan without making a change in the underlying regulations. And what the appellate court decided was, under the Affordable Housing Appeals Act, you didn't have to file zoning regulation amendments to fit. So to the extent that an applicant comes in with an 830G that doesn't meet every element of your regulations, the commission's burden, if they were to deny based on non-compliance with a regulation, let's say it was a buffer requirement or something, you'd have to demonstrate on appeal that the denial based on that regulation was an override to the need for affordable housing that the legislature has determined is so important. The legislature gives towns the power to zone, and they make changes in it all the time. And one of them was that this very significant change of 8-30G that places affordable housing so important that it places the burden on you. And it's a set-aside development in which a certain number of units would be in turn it over to the project engineer, Mike Mizuko, in just a few minutes. We'll be able to go over the project in more detail, but a certain number have to be rented or sold at certain affordability levels. And there's an affordability plan that was submitted that provides how that is all calculated in order for persons that fit two levels of affordability, 60 or 80%, to have the rental of the units. So one thing I will submit for the record is, and this is Mike Zuno's letter with all the green cards in it. And then I'll just note a couple of things that I saw from looking at materials that were submitted into the record today. And one is one, yeah.
I have two, so.
Yeah, I'll find the other one. I'll just hand this one out. One, there was a suggestion by in a letter that this was industrial zoned property, and studied the official zoning map very carefully and disagree with that assessment. It's clear from your official zoning map that this is a residentially zoned parcel. And so what I just submit for the record, although you certainly can do it just by zooming in on your official record, or looking at it on the wall in the other room, but you'll see, I just have a copy of it, but you'll see that the entire property is matched up with the residential zone. There's a little corner of the property that maybe there's a someone had a perspective that's industrial because it's slightly black, but that's the overlay for the floodplain zone. But the zone it is in the RR10 zone under the official zoning regulations. So I just wanted to submit that for the record, even though the official map itself is obviously part of what your commission follows. The second thing I'd note is there was a number of reports that were submitted, and there was one in which the on-site inspection saw that there was some work on the project that had been done, and maybe it was work that required a permit. Our expectation is this would be request by by the engineer was that this hearing should be kept open. We expect that's going to be the case. It's an 830G. We don't want to conflate the two and deal with any issues of compliance. My client has informed me, and they're here, by the way, Mr. Saunders is recovering from COVID, and Mrs. Saunders was exposed to him. So they would have otherwise been in the room tonight, but they're on virtual meeting. But they informed me that they were complying with the requirements, the regulations in terms of volumes of material that could be moved around. But we'll address that with town staff between the hearings, but it really shouldn't have any bearing on whether or not this application should be approved or not, but regardless, we'll be addressing that. And so with that, I turn the floor over to Mike.
Well, good evening. For the record, Mike Rizzuto, professional engineer. My office is in Danbury, representing the applicant. And if David turns to my plan set, I'll walk you through. So the project is on what's the corner, the end of Elgin and Whitney Road is currently 1.77 acres in the RR10 zone and improved with a contractor's yard and building there. And you can see to the north, that's the Galt. I guess they have material, masonry products, things like that. And then to the east is Simpog Brook and an associated wetland. And we'll see that in more detail as we page through. So this is I call it area mapping, the floodplain map. Our site is here. And you got the natural diversity database. Our site here. Out of that. This is again, there's a picture of the zoning map with our site here. Just showing the RR10 zone. And this is just an area of topographic map. And the other one was just a general soils map and legend for the soils map. This is the existing conditions map. And you can see that this hatched area is the building. There's an area associated with it outside of that's paved. Much of this area here is fairly level. It then slopes up. There's sort of a ridge here and then starts to slope back down as you go further west. East of the building, land slopes down. We hit the floodplain line there at 391 elevation. And as you head further east, you hit the wetland line before it crosses over the property line and then heads towards the brook. And there is some existing drainage along the southerly line that picks up 2 catch basins in the road. There's a storm manhole here at the corner, and that discharges basically about 10 to 15 feet from the brook. So the plan is to redevelop the site, as was mentioned, for 40 to 1-bedroom units. That's the building here. And we have, I believe it was 59 or 60 parking spaces that are shown around the building. We have 2 means of egress or ingress, if you will, here, and then we added another one here. The dumpster is now located here and a rec area here, in addition to the area that's basically down between that sloped area as you hit the floodplain and the wetland line. It's all open and grassed. The site is currently served by municipal sewer, which is tied into a lateral and a manhole here. There's a main that runs down along the property line. That will be abandoned and we'll gain sewer access from Whitney and Elgin. There's a sewer manhole right here. And water will be tapped off of the main that's out in the road as well. That's about it for that, David. If you can go to the site utilities, I'll walk through. Okay, perfect. So recently there was a change in the design requirements for the stormwater management. There used to be 25-year, then the James DeMayo instituted a requirement for design storms up to 100. So we added additional drainage to account for the additional flows for the 100-year storm event. And there's actually 2 rows side by side here. It's connected via a pipe here and another row here. It then discharges to a sediment trap and then an infiltration strip. The idea behind that was to, rather than dump or discharge the water directly adjacent to the stream as is occurring now, we wanted to take that water and get it overland and get some filtration and get some sediment removal out of it before it got into the stream. And so doing this, it gets it sort of heading into a northeast direction and into the wetland, and then eventually it'll get into the brook, but it has to travel overland a greater distance than what's currently happening with the discharge point right now. So as I said, we have a sewer line connecting in here, the water line here. There is gas that will also be serving the building. And we do have, because we're taking some of the grading back here on the eastern side of the western side of the site, we do have a retaining wall just to manage the grades there, and then a small wall around the dumpster pad here. Aside from that, really there's not a whole lot of grade change. I think we had, it's hard to read on the screen, but I do have the cut and fill analysis for the entire site. Okay. So we have a cut of about 1,400 yards, a fill of about 2,200, so a net fill of 783. However, that doesn't really account for the stormwater management system, the excavation that's coming out of there. It doesn't account for the material that's got to be brought in for the base, for the entire parking lot. I don't subtract out the pavement, thickness of the pavement, or, gravel under the slab, anything like that. So net, it's really kind of pretty close in terms of cut and fill and that for the site when you take into consideration those items. This is the lighting and landscaping. And so we kept the lighting, we added a lot more lights, but kept them down low. So there's only 8-foot post lighting or just building mounted lighting near entranceways and around just the perimeter of the building, in addition to some bollard lighting. So all of the lighting is just very low to keep the light pollution to a minimum on the site. And there's a detail showing the light fixture, and it's all just down and out lighting. Okay. And these are the turning movements. You can see we added the new entrance to show the vehicle that can get in, pull up. They're coming in from both directions, from Elgin and Whitney. This shows the vehicle pulling in, be able to back out and turn and get out. And then pulling into this end of the easterly end near the dumpster. And then it would just back out and then be able to get out, similar to this turning movement here. And here, just standard details for retaining wall, the gallery system. There are 4x4 concrete galleries. We'll have concrete sumps under each inlet, great inlet. And just the detail of the dumpster, water main connection, sewer, handicap details, sidewalk, things like that. And is that it, David? Oh, erosion control details. So silt fence, construction entrances, the swale, silt sacks for the catch basins, temporary during construction, and just erosion control notes. So that's about it. I think at this point, turn it over to the project architect, Chris Snell, and he can go over the architectural design.
Hello. Excuse me. Chris Snell, BBS Design. I'm the project manager. As Mr. Marzucco just briefly described earlier, what we're presenting here is a 42 unit building on 3 floors. And out of the 42 units, 13 are designated affordable. The building is fully sprinklered. We did a preliminary code analysis for safety, egress, and fire ratings, and we more than exceed any of those categories. We have the main entry on the front of the building. We have 2 side entries, and we also have 2 stairwell towers. We have an elevator. I'm sorry, I'm going too fast. We have an elevator right here that serves all 3 floors. And also in the stairwell towers, we have areas of refuge, which are required for people in a wheelchair in case the elevator doesn't work or the other exit is breached. They can wait for help in case, you know, there's a fire. So rescue personnel can come and get them. Excuse me. Each unit is roughly 700 to 800 square feet per. All the units were designed per state of Connecticut. When we're dealing with an apartment complex, we have to provide what's called type A and type B buildings for accessibility. And anything over 20 units in Connecticut requires at least 10% of units to be type A, which are outfitted with grab bars, and the countertops are for accessible height and clearances. And the rest of the units have to be type B, which are also accessible, but don't have to be fitted at the present time. The type B units can be retrofitted in the future. All we have to do is provide the blocking into the walls for grab bars. And also the clearances are not as restrictive as type A. So again, the building is completely designed that it meets or exceeds the type A requirement and the type B requirement for units. Let's see. I went over the entries, the exits, the stair towers. Almost all the units have either a patio or a balcony. I think there's only 3 or 4 that do not. And let's see. I believe if you want to go to the elevations, David, thank you. So it's a bit hard to see, but there are jogs in and out for the whole facade, both on the sides and in the front. Some of the elements pop out, some recess in, and we're using a variety of materials to kind of break up the elevations. We have some horizontal siding, some vertical siding, and where the main the main entry is, we're highlighting that with some stone and metal roofing. This is going to be PVC type railing on all the balconies and the patios. And the roof is going to be architectural shingles. And at this point, I'm open to questions or Thank you.
I would just point out is in the units, in the affordability plan that's been submitted, there's a designation of which units, and you'll see there's there are 15 of them, I believe, or 13 of them.
13.
13 of them. And they're interspersed. They're not put it in one location. And in my experience, what makes a project like this work well has to be the non-restricted units. It has to be an attractive building, has to command a rent, because there's only a small number of them that are designated for affordable. And we think the project would certainly accommodate that. The full, very attractive building for the full market, fair market rentals. So if there aren't any questions on that side.
Do have the affordable designation for the units for, for the plans.
To submit?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're actually designated right on the drawing.
Right, and so I'm submitting this for the record, and it's consistent with what was in the affordability plan, but just a far premature. Yeah, the right thing. So on 84. Okay, so what you'd see in the affordability plan, this is a slightly more professional drawing, which we'll submit. In this affordability plan, there's just a hand marking of which ones are at 80% affordability and which ones are at 60% affordability.
That's fine.
Yeah, excuse me, Ken, for the Attorney Slater, just I noted on the portability plan, they did have the drawings.
Right.
Except it looked like you had the first floor and the second floor and then the repeat of the first floor, so you left out the third floor.
That is the updated set. So
Okay.
it was,
Okay. So what we'll do before the next hearing is we'll submit an affordability plan, and what we'll do is substitute, instead of the handwritten plans to them, the corrected one in electronic format, but we'll submit this hard copy. Now, the questions we'll be ready to respond to it.
What I'd like to do now.
Excuse me, Ken. Before we open to the public, I just wanted to, one thing that I think is important to note for the record, that what we want to do is to incorporate the previous application regarding 17 Whitney Road. We want to also incorporate that record into this record at this time.
And for what, just so I understand, for what purpose would you want that in for this record?
Yeah, I think we want to include it in the record. I had intended to announce that it's the same applicant, it's the same site. There's a number of items that were made about the site or whatever that may be helpful. The reality is it's in all the commission members' heads, so it can actually refer to a document that may have been mentioned in the last meeting and not in this meeting. Then it's all clear in the event that we have to go up on appeal and reference that judge. So. And it is, the same applicants, and again, the same site, very recent, so. But I think you can proceed. So,
At this time, I'd like to open to the public. Protocol is that you state your name and your address, ask your questions to the commission. When all questions have been asked, the applicant and the commission will answer those.
Hi, Brad Coults, 1 Fairchild Drive. I would first like to just raise a point of concern about this meeting. On January 23rd, the town of Bethel entered a consent agreement with me regarding a freedom of information complaint that I filed regarding use of private communication devices at public hearings. The town lost the case and has consented to inform all boards that use of those exposes the individuals to excessive fines. It exposes the committee to its work at the meeting being having to be redone. And I'm wondering if the committee's been made aware of this at this point, because I've observed obviously tonight 2 members of the committee sitting with personal communication devices during a public hearing. And I'm deeply concerned about it.
Actually, may I answer that? I have this because my husband is home and he's ill. So I have to have it in case there's a phone call.
And I didn't see you using it during the meeting, Kate.
I don't,
No, but I will
but
tell
it
you.
has to be
Protocol that
available.
was defined by the Freedom of Information Commission that the town in writing has agreed to is. If an individual on the board needs to communicate with the device, they are either to excuse themselves from the meeting or ask for recess. If they have material that they'd like to look up, they're supposed to ask the secretary of the meeting to look it up and share it with the committee and public. Private conversations during the meeting are also prohibited and also fall under the same set of circumstances. I'm surprised that I'm seeing this, but I thought I should raise this concern immediately. So,
Thank you.
I appreciate that. I was not aware of that. For the record, I'm using this to look at zoom in on plans from the records so that I can actually get a better view than from the screen here.
The state considers using your personal communication device to be a violation regardless of.
Then I.
What about discount?
Well,
That a personal communication?
your point is noted, sir. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else want to speak?
Sure. Nancy Sudik, 2 Ridgedale
I'm
Road.
sorry, we have to record.
Oh,
Would you come up here? Thanks, Nancy.
Nancy Sudik, 2 Ridgedale Road, I face this way. You see, if that were easier to see, you wouldn't have to worry about all these devices. Anyway, I just want to make a statement that I was the one who wrote the letter that said something to the effect that I thought the property was industrially zoned currently, but I want to tell you why I think that, and I'd like that to be clarified for me, please. I was understanding that the majority of the property is currently industrial zone because I saw a land use card official from Bethel, and it has a big I with zoning. It says I for that piece of property. Now, I'm guessing I isn't residential, it's just a guess, but I'm thinking not. So I'd like to have a clarification on that. Because it says 1.5 acres, 1.56 acres maybe is I, and 0.23 or something is R, residential. Okay, so my feeling is the end result of this project is going to stress the current infrastructure of Bethel. It's going to create an influx of traffic on all the surrounding tiny roads. It's going to create an influx of children into an already overburdened school system. And it's going to allow a density of development, which is going to overwhelm the existing community of shorter 2 and 3 family homes, or 1 and 2. This is 3 stories high. There are no homes around here that are anywhere near that high. Industrial use, even if it's expanded for what is currently being done on that property, would certainly be preferable to 42 units of housing. I do believe that the rest of my letter to you was self-explanatory, and I don't need to read the rest of this, but I do want an explanation about why that land use card from the town of Bethel has a great big I on it. Thank you.
Allison St. Germain, 14 Elgin Ave. I have this, I'll give it to you and I'll also email it to you, Beth, as well. The reapplication of 17 Whitney Road as an 830G project does not comply with local zoning regulations or public health and safety. I respectfully ask the commission to consider these facts and questions regarding the current application before them. As Nancy mentioned, the parcel in the Whitney Road project, according to our town tax assessor, is located zoned industrial. There's a link here. I have a printed copy attached of the current field card. The application is listed as parcel ID, like you mentioned in the opening, 141623, with an address of 0 Whitney Road. There is no 17 Whitney Road in the field cards. 17 Whitney Road application lists the zoning as R10 TOD, and the 2014 zoning map, which their lawyer has sent, and I have a link here, lists it as R10, which is correct. If the property in question has been paying taxes to the town, is industrially zoned, and is listed as such in the town tax assessor records, then wouldn't a zone change be required to build residential in the TOD? You would need that TOD overlay to build. Per Connecticut court cases, the state ruled that a town can exclude any 830G application in an industrial zone that does not permit residential development. I have a summary attached. The current Bethel zoning does not permit residential development in industrial zones. Number two, the original application denied by this commission lists the total land at 1.7 acres. However, the said tax assessor lists it as 1.56 acres. The new application does not list the lot size. The size of the lot will determine the number of units that can be built. And of that total lot size, some is in the floodplain. So how much of that lot is actually buildable? This is also going to be copied to wetlands because they did a walkthrough this weekend. The original application in the wetlands reports from last year do include a report from JMM Wetland Consulting Services, but it only addressed a soil survey. That application in the current one before this commission and the Inland Wetlands Commission does not show if studies were done on the function and values of the wetlands in question, especially in regard to reducing flood risks and the impact of wildlife habitats in the area. Also, delineation. Who mapped and delineated the wetlands properties? Was that done on the original application or is it this new one? If it was the original application, does it need to be updated and included with this new larger proposal? Number three, we're just now seeing the fire marshal's concerns, but one of the original proposal concerns was denied because of safety of egress and emergency from the property without a proper second exit. The new proposal provides 2 driveways to the front and not to the rear, like original with the fire marshal requested. This should be reviewed for safety because the driveways empty onto the same street corner within feet of one another. This could be considered a health and human safety issue and an 830G application could be denied for. This is also going to get copied to the Bethel Economic Development Commission because their purpose clearly states in several areas that they are to promote and preserve industry in Bethel. Further, the EDC Section J states that they will consult and advise the Town Planning and Zoning Commission on all phases of business and industrial in said Bethel. Has the Economic Development Commission taken a stand on the pending loss of industrial land in Bethel with this project? The EDC recommended the expansion of the Clark Industrial Park with taxpayer money, and the Board of Selectmen approved that expansion with state money. So why are they not involved with changes now to this property as proposed? Taking this project into context, it does not meet the existing regulations. The application has inconsistencies with regards to the current information from the Town of Bethel tax and land use records on the website. It should be denied in its current form. The property owner should first request a zone change from industrial to TOD, and then a new application should be submitted that fits the requirements. The P&Z Commission has already provided feedback on how a residential development could fit the scale, scope, and mass of the surrounding area as a TOD project. The fact that P&Z has already provided the owner with ways to reconfigure the original project to make it more appropriate for the neighborhood does not appear to have very much effect. This is a much more aggressive project and has been presented a building that is much more impactful than the first from both an environmental and a health and safety point of view. This is a case of using 830G to bypass not only local decision makers, but whether intentional or not, it is a direct insult to the community of which this proposal is to be a part. Again, I'll submit an electronic copy as well.
Arthur England, Willow Street. I feel like after Allison, there's not much left to say. But, clearly coming back, with a 42 unit development, as opposed to the original 30 units. I mean, it didn't change my mind. I'm still opposed to it. This project does not fit into the 1 and 2 family neighborhood that, it is now. If this project requires a zone change, what is the purpose of having zoning regulations? If all you have to do is apply for a zoning change. That doesn't make sense to me to have zoning regulations at all, then just do whatever you want. Traffic downtown is already so bad that, anytime I try to leave town and I have to get anywhere on the other side of downtown, we go through Danbury because it's less traffic. To get anywhere, Plum Trees Road out to Stony Hill, anything, I go through Danbury, Great Pasture, Shelter Rock. This is only going to increase and make traffic worse downtown, putting 42 more units downtown, it's insane. So I think Allison covered, everything, why this is bad for the town. But from a personal standpoint, I'm most concerned with the noise and light pollution this is gonna create for my personal property. You know, this proposal is a significantly higher elevation than my property, you know, where it butts my property. And, you know, there's gonna be 18 parking spaces that are gonna be mere feet from my bedroom and my son's bedroom at a significantly higher elevation. So I'm gonna have lights shining into my second floor. There's 18 parking spaces that are, I mean, like I said, they're mere feet from my property, you know, shining right into my bedroom. You know, the idea of placing a 6-foot privacy fence along the property border, it's not gonna do anything to promote any privacy, because this proposal sits at an elevation of about 8 feet higher than my property. So you're still gonna be 2 feet over the top of that privacy fence. So if this proposal is to go forward in any fashion, you know, I would guess that there'd be some better privacy along that western border of the property. That's pretty much it. Like I said, Allison covered all the good points.
Paul Fredericks, 13 Whitney Road. Aside from everything else I don't like about the project, which probably doesn't really fit in here anyway, I'm wondering about Whitney Road and Elgin Avenue. You've got, if I heard right, 60 parking spots for 42 units, single bedroom. Easy enough to figure a couple with 2 cars in each one. It's not enough parking spots. They end up on Whitney and Elgin. That corner, which I know most, if not all of you have seen, if you put 1 car on there, it's a mess. People move pretty fast down that little road, and it becomes a real safety issue. Trying to get around cars on that corner, it's kind of blind. So that's a concern. Not to mention the fact that, unless I'm wrong, in the winter, you can't park on the road in Bethel overnight. And they're all going to be out there, and especially when it snows, plows aren't going to be able to do their job. That's a safety issue. Thank you.
Frankenfurter, 3 Hunting Hollow Drive. I'm just speaking in general opposition to overall policies that I see statewide, especially enthusiastically adopted by Bethel. That is the concept of multifamily housing, stacked, compact, dense housing, which does not really add to the social capital of the town. It leads to isolation. It leads to the people that have been there versus the people that are just coming and going. Obviously, all the things, all the impacts that are going to accumulate because of this development, the sewers, the schools, the crime, the social services, you name it, traffic, which is unbearable in the town of Bethel. I would like to also speak to the fact that Bethel is a charming place because it grew organically. There's lots of small single-family houses, maybe 1 and 2 family houses, streetscapes that are in harmony with each other. Nobody's towering over anybody else, and we should have some gratitude for the accumulated wisdom of our ancestors. Bethel has got a beautiful village. It's got all these side streets, Blackman and Farnham and High Street and Grand Street and Greenwood Avenue itself and South Street and all these neighborhoods that grew organically around town. And they grew organically with families in them because they were houses. And they had fences and gardens and grass and things like that. And you know, with the encouragement of the lawmakers in Hartford and the planners, they've entered into this purposeful arrangement as a top-down type of a planning, and it never works. You got to work from the bottom up. Bethel's already here. We don't need all this multifamily dense housing because it creates stress. It creates psychological stress on the people in the town. So it's not your duty you're not compelled to actually change zones and welcome all this multifamily housing. This is the second one, right? I mean, I think it was here the month before and there was another one. How many units was that? The one that we're talking about just before in the last meeting. How many units was that, if I could ask? 200? 230.
There's no plan been submitted.
Okay, but that's on the
That's not
works.
even here yet.
Okay,
Oh, it's a concept.
okay, but that's in the works. And it's just, it doesn't seem to create any harmony. And I worry about that. Now, I was looked at a few statistics from the Census Board. And number one, you know, in terms of affordable housing units, we've done our job in Bethel. As a, you know, in proportion of the number of affordable housing units that we have in Bethel compared to the total housing units, our ratio is really good. I mean, it exceeds Wallingford, Rocky Hill, New Milford, Wilton, New Canaan, Westport, Fairfield, Easton, Brookfield, Darien, Madison, Milford, New Fairfield, Newtown, Richfield, Reading, and on and on. Matter of fact, here's this list. And you can see it just to get a picture of it. Here's this list. And the ones that have the highest affordable housing units to overall units is, I think it's Bridgeport with, it has a very high percentage. And Bethel in this long list is up here. And then this page keeps going on. And it goes on. These are all ranked in order. And on. You know, Bethel's done its part. We're near the top of the list. We don't need any more affordable housing units. Secondly, we don't really need that much more in the way of more people in the town. We have a somewhat very dense population. We rank in the top 20-25% of all the towns. When I was looking at the statistics on that, we're 45th. And it's even higher than that because they were using 18,000 people. I think we're like 21,000 people now. What is it?
It's 20,000 plus.
Yeah. So we're probably in the low 40s out of 200 geographic areas that they tested. So we're already hitting home runs in terms of density. We're already hitting home runs in terms of proportion of affordable housing units to overall housing units in Bethel. So I really would like to oppose and actually encourage you to not go down this road of just adding multifamily housing to a village community. You're gonna ruin it. There have been studies, you know, with these transit-oriented districts that started in China and Japan and the United States and what have you. And these transit districts, which is I don't even know if this is going to be a part of it, but they are really meant for the big towns, for the train stations that are going to carry a lot of people elsewhere. But as I said at the last meeting, a lot of this transit stuff, I mean, the dependence on the railway is starting to subside with all this office on home work. And Bethel is not a big town. Danbury is a big town. And the transit-oriented district is more applicable to a town like that, where you can probably get multi-use type of development, stores and residences and everything, so you can invigorate the downtown. We have a very vibrant downtown, and you're going to scare people away by having all this extra stress put on it where you can't get through it. I could just see Bethel having one-way street in Main Street because we just can't get all the people through anymore. So I would urge the board, just from a general policy standpoint, from a social standpoint, you know, just from a tradition and a gratitude standpoint, not to stampede by accepting in the acceptance of all these new applications that are happening all over the state of Connecticut. And you know, at some point, the baby boomers are going to be gone. All this abundance of multifamily houses, stacked housing, believe it or not, I mean, it's stacked housing. You have maybe a window in front, a window in back. You don't see your neighbors. You take elevators. I mean, you don't share, you're not even on the ground. You can't grow a garden. It's hard to raise a family. That's not good for Bethel. It's not good for a lot of towns. And it's actually part of the reason why we have social ills. We've dehumanized our housing. We've just put everybody in cages and cubicles, and it's not right. You ought to resist it. Thank you.
Hi, Brad. Brad Colton, One Fairchild again.
Let me.
Hold your second. Let's see if anybody prefers ones, okay? Online maybe.
Anybody online who would like to speak?
Stay there. Anybody want to raise their hand to speak? Oh, David's not there, huh? Oh, yeah. David.
I'm right here.
Oh, I'm sorry, David. You were blocking. That was great.
In the instance that those who are attending tonight's meeting on Zoom did not hear the chairman or Ms. Grant, for those that want to offer public comment that are attending on Zoom, you can indicate your intent to do so by hitting the reactions icon at the bottom of the Zoom app, and there should be a button that would appear upon doing so for you to raise your hand. We will accept public comments in the order from people that raised their hand on Zoom. So if anyone wants to offer or do so at this time, the chairman will entertain that.
Can you scroll down, David?
For anyone that's raising their hand, they would appear right at the top. I'm seeing a Diane Ryan, Mr. Chairman.
I think you want to open her.
Diane Ryan.
Hi, Diane Ryan, 13 Karen Drive. I expressed my concern about the last project, and this is larger by 12 more units. I'm concerned about the parking situation. The last project also had the building very close to the hedgerow behind there. I don't see how fire trucks are to get back behind there if there was a fire. And I know that's something that they seem to be very concerned about in the Stony Hill Fire Department. I don't know about the one in downtown. And that buffer of trees that are behind where the building would be give a little bit of privacy to the neighbors behind there, but they're going to be really towered over by this 4 story building by the time you put the roof on and everything. I had also questioned whatever was going to be happening with the drainage that would possibly occur going down to those neighbors behind there, because already they're higher than that, and you're going to have a parking area. I know there's a whole lot of drains that they're planning on having, but my concern was, what's going to happen to those neighbors behind there. And, the way I guess wetlands is a different thing, but basically it looks like they're having a lot of the drainage going towards the wetlands behind the neighbor on Elgin Avenue. And my concern had also been for all the animals and the neighbors. It doesn't fit with the neighborhood. And I'm against this change in the larger density building. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else raising their hand? Anybody else care to speak?
I'm not seeing any other attendees on Zoom that have their hands raised at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Do you want to speak again?
Hi, Brad Colts, One Fairchild Drive. I just do have a question. I've got the current official zoning map that's dated 2014. It's online. And it does show this parcel that's been used for industrial as being in R10. I'm wondering if anyone on the commission or in the department recalls at what point or how it came to be that this parcel took that use, or if that was changed in terms of the zoning.
We have no idea
When that might have been done.
We're going to ask staff to look into it.
Will you share that with the public?
You want to respond now and then the commission can.
A few points. And I'll start right there. The tax collector is not this commission, and it's the tax assessor rep. I've seen many instances where information was inaccurate on tax field. What is perfectly clear is that this commission at some point in time adopted the official zoning map. It's right on the wall there. It's in the wall in the land use office. It's on the town webpage. This is residentially zoned property. It's the beginning, the middle, and the end. Doesn't matter what a field card says. The field card could say, not trying to be flippant, but if it said the property is owned by Mickey Mouse, it's not. So if the information at the assessor's records are completely irrelevant. This is a residentially zoned property. There were some comments made about wetlands issues. There is a wetlands application that's pending, and as you know, what you'll get is the report from the Wetland Commission after it reviews all the evidence, and certainly members of the public who spoke tonight on issues related to wetlands will have that same opportunity there. Comments in terms, there were a couple comments about this, the lot size drives density that's allowed. Well, that's not true. That's exactly some of the things you heard tonight are exactly the reason the Affordable Housing Appeals Act came into being. Because some of the lovely neighborhoods that exist in Bethel, those frankly wouldn't support providing some affordable housing. So this is an important tool that's necessary throughout the state of Connecticut in order to be able to provide that. But it's, the wisdom of it is it's built into market rate units and at rate that makes sense. So as long as we can demonstrate that we comply with health and safety considerations, that the access way, if there's concern, and the project engineer will comment on that. But if there was something improper in terms of the way the access went out onto the road that created a safety issue, that could be a legitimate concern. But simply having more people in town, or we don't want these new people in our town, that's exactly what the Affordable Housing Appeals Act is designed to. And in fact, you do have a duty. Connecticut law does impose a duty on you to not deny this plan unless there's one of those issues that arise to the level of being more important than what the legislature determined is the need for affordable housing. Where a state, a town loss, and that's what your responsibility is. You do it all the time. You look at some unpopular projects I'm sure you've approved before on a site plan, or is there something that somebody doesn't like? You look at your regulations, it complies with the regulation, you have to approve it. And if it doesn't, you have to deny it. But the rules here are different than your normal application. And it's one in which absent something that rises to that level, the public health, and nothing's been raised tonight, I believe, that rises to that. But certainly there's some comments that were made today that perhaps the engineer wants to comment on, or maybe defer on our expectation that this hearing is going to be kept open.
I just want to say that I will, I've got all the letters. I will be preparing written responses. The fire marshal did issue a letter saying he was okay with it. That was after some minor tweaks that I made to the plan and sent him a draft copy. So all of that will be formalized. We're in the midst of two commissions. There's comments. I'm going to check with Jim because in one of his letters, he made it sound like he was going to issue more comments. I'm like, well, give me the comments now is what I would like. And maybe I just misread what he was saying, but I will check with him on that because I would like to get all of the comments, address all of them in one shot if I can. It's preferable rather than to try to do some in wetlands and then go to planning and then, do them and then go back and forth. We just get whipsawed back and forth. So I'm trying to coordinate all of that. And I'm hoping that by next week, I'll have everything in written responses and revised plans. Okay.
Thank you.
Just in regard to the assessor's records versus the zoning map, just to clarify that, or I'm not going to be clarifying it, I'm just going to tell you that it's been practiced since I've been here, that when, for example, if someone is doing a property search or anything of that nature, they may go to the assessor's office to get the field card, but they always check with the zoning department to ensure that the zoning designation is correct. And as far as I know, since I've been employed here, it has been double R10 zone. I was not here in 2014. I do not know if there was changes that occurred regarding that. But it is in the double R10 zone as far as my office is concerned at this point.
Commission members.
Not yet. I'm looking and I'm interested. I'm listening.
Comments, questions on
I did have a few questions, and sorry. Okay, your board.
Okay. I have some serious, very serious unintended consequences as a result of this project. It's not so much technical in nature, but when you add 60, possibly 70 cars going in and out of here, to me, that's a gigantic safety issue that does not exist now. Something much more reasonable that goes in here without that massive traffic thing, I think that would be reasonable. It's 160 feet by 70 feet. This is absolutely a monstrous building for that area. It may be very well designed and very appropriate, but I see a tremendous amount of unintended consequences as the volume of people that might show up for 42 units. That's it.
Thank you. Any comments?
I had issues with the initial application, which I think that the groundwork for that was inappropriate and unfortunate. So this application just goes way beyond that one. So.
I feel the same way. The first application with, excuse me, with the 30 apartments, well, I thought was huge. 42, I think is pushing a tremendous limit. I didn't see anything in our reports from the police commission. Are we going to have anything from them or
We should,
a
yes.
traffic report, perhaps?
It'll be from the police commission.
Okay, so we're not going to do a separate traffic report now.
Are you requesting that that be done?
Yes, I would like that done. If that's at all possible.
Are you asking for the town consultant to review it?
Yes, I am. Because I think with the amount of traffic that is being, with the extra 12 units here, I think the traffic is going to be overwhelming for that area.
So you're looking for their expertise in regards to the traffic?
Yes, I am.
I would like to see that too.
Rob, any comments, questions at this point?
As it relates to health and safety.
I agree with everything so far. I thought the last one was an abomination. I don't know what the next level abomination is, but this is it.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Kenny.
I know I'm all the way, like,
It's same thing.
I'm sinking slowly to the floor. I actually do have a question about the units themselves. You say that there are 13 affordable units interspersed. How many of those units will be ADA fully compliant?
All.
Okay,
all.
hang on.
I'm sorry.
Oh, there's more. And question number 2, how does this fit in with the rest of the neighborhood? That would be my second question. And I have a comment, but I'll hold off, so.
Chris Personnel, BBS Design. All the units are designed for accessibility. You know, on all floors, every unit, including the designated affordable.
Except if I'm correct, you said that some of them meet the ADA compliance already with grab bars and all of that.
Correct.
How many of these affordable units are going to be the ones that are going to need to be upgraded?
So for the state of Connecticut, there's actually no requirement for affordable housing to have ADA units. What designates the type A and type B units is the actual building code.
Okay. With all due respect, we are looking for more than what the state requires. We have, comment. We have issues in the town with people who are in need of mobility. And it's a challenge. So I would urge, with all due respect to whatever the state requirement is, that you consider that 830G doesn't really matter when we're talking about accessibility. I think it does matter. And just another
I guess
question.
I'm just not following,
Well, you
because,
said that you've gone above and beyond what the state requires.
well, yes, because every single unit designed in this building is made to be accessible. So whether it's affordable or not,
I understand.
they're all ADA
I'm
compliant.
just asking how many of the ones that are turnkey, walk-in, fully ready to go, accessible.
That would be,
I think you said 13.
yeah, 13 are affordable, so, I mean, they could all be turnkey accessible, yes.
So are they all ready to walk
That's
in
gonna,
accessible?
that's gonna be, when we do the final construction drawings. At this point, it's a little premature to comment on that because the codes dictate how we approach the design of the building.
I would
so-
like to suggest that maybe we move beyond the codes just a little bit. So that was another
But
question.
as professionals, we have to follow the codes.
Of
It's part
course you
of
do.
Public safety.
Absolutely.
We cannot even think of forgetting about the codes. It's just-
Oh, I'm not saying forget about the codes. I'm saying move beyond the codes. Let me just. And. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
And one of your questions was, how does it fit into the neighborhood? Quite safely.
Can you explain, can you,
Yes, sure,
Expand?
from the affordable housing standpoint, what has to happen is we'll have to demonstrate that we need code. That it can be safely accessed, and if there aren't any public health and safety issues associated with the development that outweighs the need of affordable housing, and we believe it's been designed just that way, and that there would be safe access and ingress in these codes in terms of fire safety, and therefore will comply with what the requirements of Connecticut law are to allow for this kind of project.
and again, with all due respect, you're asking, I'm just looking to see what your rationale for putting a very large construction place. I'm not saying I'm disagreeing with it. I'm just looking for clarification. You're looking to put something very, very large, completely outside the integrity, the architectural integrity, the whole integrity of the neighborhood. And I'm wondering how you see this construction being part of this neighborhood.
Mike Mizuko for the record. The initial application, because it's part of the record, I just want to reiterate one of the things I had said. See, I think you're looking at things like the immediate neighborhood just in the RR10 zone. But you got to realize that this property sits on the zone line with an industrial zone. The natural transition from, say, an industrial is typically a multifamily zone, then like a high density multifamily, then a low density multifamily, then you're going to get into your residential zones. That's typically how the zoning is going to work. So you got to realize that this property sits right against an industrial use that has, and not that it's just zone industrial, it's used as industrial right adjacent to the property. So that's how.
Would it be fair to say that there would be a gradual shift from industrial to high density into neighborhood, that there should be a gradual shift?
Well, that's from north to south, that's what you're gonna end up with.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one question for clarity. You did say, I believe, that every unit would be adaptable to ADA standards, right?
That's
And
correct.
there's 13 that will be in the original design.
13 units are designated affordable.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So as far as the affordable part of it has nothing to do with the state.
Right now, my question is not about the affordable.
Right.
How many units will be ADA
Again, every single unit is designed to be ADA compliant, whether it's a type A or type B, it's gonna be, according to
The
the
question
building.
is, when the building is finished,
Mhm.
have you figured out yet how many of those units of the 42 will be ADA?
I believe, the code requires, 20% of the units to be, type A and the rest are type B.
Thank you very much. Mr. Legnar, do you have any questions?
I did it. Yeah.
Not at this time. Thank you, Bob.
Pleasure.
I do have one question before you continue the hearing. In regards to my report and the engineering report that was submitted this evening, I didn't hear clearly from the property owner or the representative. Is the work on the property going to stop now?
What was gonna happen is that we're gonna get together and demonstrate whether or not that we're in compliance. My clients believe that they follow the regulations with that. So we'll work with your staff in order to determine whether it's not. And if it's not, we won't continue. There's nothing happening right now.
All I'm asking for is until we sit down and figure this out, that the work stop.
Well, the Saunders are on the line, and I learned about this for the first time this afternoon, so.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at you because you're.
No, I'm saying I know they're here too. I don't know that the work is actually ongoing, like.
And I don't
it is
either.
going
I'm
to-
just asking.
Yep, and if Judy, are you able to jump in? Is it? do you
I
know
was
the answer
out
to that
there a
question?
couple of weeks ago and nothing has changed since then, so.
Okay, that can represent that nothing further will happen until we communicate. And we get somebody out on the site to show whether or not it's in compliance or not. And obviously, if something's not in compliance, then we'll get it in compliance. But so your request is granted, it's not being worked on now.
Thank you. In regards to. I'm sorry.
Okay.
There's one other thing I wanted to bring up. Excuse me 1 second. In regards to Mike, with the vehicle turn radius, you straightened that out with Tom, right?
Correct.
And you gave him a revised
I emailed him,
program with the drawing that was updated or whatever,
right, because he came back and he said that the E1 aerial unit that I was using didn't match up exactly to the fire department's unit in terms of length. And so, and wheelbase. So I modified my vehicle to match his dimensions and then reran it. I had to tweak the lines a little bit. And I also, there's a lot of lines because when you do the vehicle tracking, it tracks the outside body of the vehicle as well as the wheels.
Okay.
And so, he asked if I could send him a color plot. So I was able to plot it in color and email it to him. And so that's what he was basing his latest comments on. But again, the commission hasn't seen those modifications yet, but again, they were very minor in terms of the curb alignment. Right.
Mr. Chairman, I know you want to continue the hearing till the 28th of February. Before you do that, I just want to mention to the general public that we do have an executive session immediately after he closes this hearing. That means that everybody has to leave the room. And I would just request that you do it as quickly as possible, so we don't have to keep them here all evening because we do have a heavy schedule. That's all.
And you had one other
Just a
comment.
last question, Ms. Saint Germain asked something about the size of the lot, the acreage. Do you know what the actual size of the acreage is of the lot?
I missed that.
It's 1.765, I believe, is the acreage.
Okay, thank you.
I have it in my notes. Good point. Thank you.
All right, at this time, I'm going to continue the public hearing until the meeting of the 28th. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good night.
Make
Make a motion to look at the minute.
I move to take a 2-minute recess.
Second. Don't move. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes. Abstain.
But make sure.
Okay,
Okay, we have to make a motion to go into executive session, anticipated Frank and Judith Sanders versus Town of Bethel and the Planning and Zoning Commission regarding 17 Whitney Road /30 unit /denial /citation /October 21st, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And you're inviting,
And you're inviting.
And we're inviting Dr. Wagner, Chuck Enders, and Nancy LaBelle.
yeah,
Oh, and David.
and don't forget,
Oh, and
Mr. Legnard is attending on.
Well,
Zoom.
he's part of the commission.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do have to be seated before.
Okay,
And note for the record. Paul Stanley is absent and will be seating Rob Wallace.
And
Was-
which you can see. Linda.
Yes,
was there,
it doesn't matter for
it
executive.
doesn't matter.
Oh,
was
okay.
there, was there a motion made?
Yes, and it was seconded.
Okay,
Was it
so
voted?
all those.
Although I did it. All in
Okay,
favor?
okay, let me, all right, I'm gonna,
Okay, so for the record. Paul Stanley is absent. We're seating Rob Wallace. Rich Tibbetts is absent and we're seating Linda Curtis. Next on the item on the agenda are the minutes. Did everybody have an opportunity to review them? Any questions or concerns or corrections?
Motion to, and it's at 124-23.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? So moved. So. Nancy, can you tell us what the invoice is for?
It says legal.
Yeah, 506 for legal notice.
yeah, let me pull this up.
Motion to pay the invoice for $506 for legal notice.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? So moved. Next item,
I'm just gonna say, thinking about the other gentleman.
I can't remember.
Being that this one, yeah, somebody is here for that, and nobody's here for this one.
No, they're online.
Oh, all right.
They're online.
Oh, they're online. Oh, sorry. Okay, go ahead. I'm wrong.
Okay,
I'm going off of what's in the Google Drive.
Oh, please.
All right.
Okay.
Something else in there. Put them on letter.
Okay. Please go start together. That was it. Or just bite one off and see.
okay, but we're not going there.
I know, I'm just trying to pull it up to make sure it's ready for when we do.
So next item is work session 9 and 11 Diamond Avenue.
Mhm.
Any discussion points, any additional input? We've all had an opportunity to hear the public input and the testimony. Are we at a position where we can make a general recommendation or consensus? Come to consensus on the application? Whether we approve it or not?
Is this where we can make comments?
I think we-
This is where we can.
Yes, yes,
Cool, okay.
yes.
Go ahead. I've done a lot of thinking about this, like a
Mhm.
lot. Driving around a child, kind of around the neighborhood doing a look around. And there are two things that come to mind. First of all, I know that people are talking about industrial. Industrial, we need more industrial, people should be, it's industrial, let's use it for industrial.
Mhm.
That land has been lying fallow except for a couple of places. Since we moved up here, and that was like 40 years ago. If people wanted to put industrial use in there, they would be doing it, and that's not happening. We also have a massive industrial park that has a lot of space with a lot of area. So that concern about, it's taking away some of our industrial space that just doesn't fit. The other issue that I have actually was suggested tonight a little bit, that it's going to be used for something. And right now, honestly, we don't have enough housing in the area, which means that rental prices are sky high. Home prices, I think may have leveled off because there's just nothing to buy. Nothing selling, nothing to buy. For people who are living in Bethel, who want to downsize, quite frankly, there's not a whole lot of option in Bethel to downsize to. There's some, if you're talking about the boomers, if they want to downsize, where are they going to go that's going to live, like downsize their mortgage? Because right now, everything is kind of at, the same level. I also noticed, and this was a number of years ago, when Broken Symmetry opened, we were there on one of the first nights, and we met, a couple of friends that happened to be there at the same time. And the place was overrun by millennials. And I'm looking around and I'm thinking, where do you live? Where are you? I don't see, where are you living? Where is this happening? If you build it, it's trite. If you build it, they will come. And if you build places that are affordable and nice, we will maybe be able to retain the older population that doesn't want the colonial anymore, wants something closer to town, bringing up younger people. And I'm not saying they're all going to get on the train and, ride down to Merit 7, but younger people who work in Danbury, who work, in Waterbury, things like that, but who want to be within this area. So I'm looking forward to hearing what other people have to say. That's it for me.
Thank you, Penny. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Sure, Pat.
I don't know if anybody saw it in the paper, but the Board of Ed is asking 8% more. And there's approximately 90 more kids in the school system. And that is because there's more places for more people with more kids. And if we go down this road, we're going to be seeing another 100 and another 200 more kids if we keep going down this road. It's 17,000 per kid, so that's a little over $1 million right now. If we get up to 200 to 300 more kids, then we're talking about 50 million for a new school, another 25 teachers, another 10 staffers. And that's the direction we're going to go. We're pretty dense now. How dense do we want to go? That's what I say.
Okay, I can agree with you there, but I can also remember when I moved here in 1971 and my daughter went into school, there were 3,900 kids in the school system. Now there's about 3,300. So the school system could take more. However, I do think myself that the concept that they brought in of 230 of 3 apartment buildings in that area, I think on Diamond Avenue, I think is overpowering. But if they come in, can we say, okay, not that large, no, but something you may have? Or can they just say, it's TOD, we can have whatever we want? I mean, do we have the options? I mean, I've been reading this constantly, and a lot of what we had, especially for that area, was because we wanted to have people who were commuting and could get to the train right from there. But of course, Hartford shot down that we couldn't have the platform or the other. Now, I've heard a lot of people say, well, nobody's commuting anymore. Well, we're coming out of COVID. People are going back to work. So yes, there will be more people using the train. But I think what I would like to see, if they are able to come back, is something something more, something much less. I mean, when I looked at the TOD for that area, or Diamond Avenue, you saw several small buildings in front, across the street from the other side. You didn't see these massive 200 structures. And I think that would be the only problem that I would have. I would like to see something, yes, but something that would be more cohesive with the neighborhood.
So you want to recommend that they
Downsize,
downsize?
yes,
Are we just
to make it more livable.
discussing the zone change? Or
Yes, just the
right,
zone
and-
change.
and To your
Not
point,
the
right,
site plan.
everything else.
Everything
Everything else
everything
is
else
under
is
site plan.
right, exactly.
But you could recommend that they look at
Please look at something,
their height.
their height
And green space.
and their number, and green space, of course, yes.
Now, as we're considering possible amendments to the TOD plan. Does a change to zoning now grandfather in anything or?
No.
Okay,
So for example, if you're looking at changing or revising the regulations,
Mhm.
and the regulations are revised prior to them submitting a site plan,
Mhm.
they have to abide by the new regulations.
okay.
Okay.
That's exactly what I wanted to hear.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, just general comments. I live a block away from this area here. And part of my reason for getting involved with planning and zoning and running and everything else was because I attended all of those meetings. And I kind of bought into the idea of what the TOD could do.
Mhm.
For the town, for business, for creating a vibrant community. And I thought from those meetings and all the public input and everything that I heard, that was the consensus of the public.
I would agree, I was at those meetings as well.
Yeah, I was at every single one of them, putting stickers on the boards and, you know, this is a passion of mine, and Bethel's been a passion of mine, you know, since, you know, moving 23 years ago. I think. Look, so lots of things, a couple of general comments, you know, as far as density and what adding multifamily does for the schools. I think that showed us some pretty hard evidence a few meetings back as to where students are coming from, and it's single family homes and not multifamily. Pretty clearly, so, and I didn't know that about the school population actually being higher than it is now. I mean, that's you know, the baby boom and the echo boom and everything else. So in some ways it makes sense. But that's interesting.
And wouldn't the increased tax base from additional residences help offset that cost of the school?
In theory, yeah.
Because I would think that a new complex would pay more than the current, and I'm just rambling here, but would pay more than what the current tax base is.
Anecdotally, I can say that train use is up, but it's Tuesday through Thursday. More people are doing flex hours, Mondays and Fridays, the lots empty. I've seen a considerable increase in the number of vehicles that are parked there Tuesday through Thursday. My wife has the bakery in the train station. It's no surprise to anyone here. She's seen it too. It's Tuesdays through Thursdays. It's almost pre-pandemic. As far as the number of people commuting.
And what we're hearing is that's gonna be a trend. It's
Yeah.
gonna be-
And you know, transit isn't just about going to work. If we create, you know, if a destination is created, if this town is more vibrant, if there's more things to do, more things happening, more arts and culture, there's the potential for that transit being an asset and, you know, bringing in the people from Stanford or from Wilton and places that don't have any potential like that. And so, you know, I had always seen the TOD as being an opportunity for the town to be, you know, visionary and to look to the future. So all that said, I'm, you know, just kind of venting here and just, you know, a lot of things that have been on my mind. Living a block away, I'm not opposed to it in theory. I think there's a lot of things that could be done that make it appealing in the actual plan when we vote on that.
It might even drive further residential development in that current industrial zone that's looking to offer.
Right, yep, very true, very true. So anyway, that's where I am. If we're strictly talking about a change from underused industrial zoning to a future potential that's net good for the town, I'm in favor.
What did you want to comment?
Yeah, so obviously I was not involved in the TOD.
Oh, excuse. I'm sorry. Doug,
I'm not seated.
I know, but did you listen to all the videos? And all- Just state it for the record.
Okay,
before you-
I've reviewed all
And
the,
also just for the record, to my point, I was strictly there as a member of the public. I was not on any.
No,
boards or
we're
commissions.
not talking about the
No,
community
right.
plan. We're just cleaning up our mechanicals dealing with this application.
for the record, I've reviewed all the materials on that.
Did you listen to the video?
I did. Yep. So I've lived here 32 years and we came here as a sleepy town. And I get the TOD, I get it. And vibrancy and stuff like that. But then I also get the urban sprawl side of things and you know, I feel like we're trying to bring as many people as we possibly can here. You know, building 200 units is a lot of people. And so maybe I represent part of the community that I like sleepy town, right? I like to be able to call a restaurant or go to a restaurant and not get so there's restaurants in town now, you try to call them to order food and they won't even take your order anymore. They're jam-packed and that's great for them, right? But I'm like, how much more jam-packed can you make them? Right? So, you know, I and my family enjoy the sleepy town. So while I see the value in TOD and vibrancy and the arts and culture and people walking and doing stuff, I don't like the sprawl. I don't like it. It's too much.
If I could define sprawl, it would be what happened in Bethel in the 60s and 70s when we were building tens of thousands of units on farmland and vacant land.
That's
And
that is the definition.
right. This is actually counter sprawl, or you know, the notion of the TOD.
Yeah.
It's condensing, and that preserves the areas around. I mean, there's only so much we can do now because you know Stony Hill has been built, but that added 15,000-20,000 people to town.
Yeah. I wouldn't say 15 or
Well,
20. I mean,
I don't have my numbers in front, but I know it was
I would say 10.
okay.
We're 500.
8 I would say 12.
Mhm.
About 12.
Right.
Starting back in the early 60s.
Right.
So I'll
And
redact my
that's- yeah.
use of the word
That's-
sprawl.
that's-
I'll
yeah.
redact my use of the word.
Yeah, and I hate sprawl too. I'm also a hiker and I am a volunteer naturalist for Appalachian Mountain Club. And I value those green spaces and open spaces to the point where I don't want to see them built. I don't want to see multifamily going on outside of the downtown core. And see it happening where we have the services, where we have the resources and leave those areas where they should be. And the town did a great thing with the farm. We made the decision to put our money where our mouth is, and we bought some of that land. And if there were opportunities to do more of that, that
We will.
Yeah. But anyway, I just wanted to do my spiel on sprawl.
No, thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Legnard,
Yes, I do have some comments
I thought you might. Okay.
on this issue. I think the overlay zone there is going to work well. I think that's I've listened to all the comments about keeping that industrial, or we need industrial. Those are probably an example of industrial you don't want anywhere near a neighborhood. Those buildings are probably some of the worst industrial properties and kept that way over the years, as were the oil tanks that we replaced with housing. And we did create TOD in order to keep the town that we know and love. And I think this, if we continue on the path we're going, that's going to happen. The increase in the school system is in the single family homes, because three houses on my street have sold and created 7 kids that weren't here before. People bought the houses, moved in, people moved out, had no kids. Their kids were all here and educated. And if we have to educate kids, that's part of the fabric of the town. You make a good town better by educating the kids that you're raising, whether they're my kids, your kids, anybody else's kids. I paid taxes over the years that I've lived in town and sent all my kids to St. Mary's. Not one of them went set foot in the public school system until after till they got to high school. And that was over sports and had nothing to do with, me wanting them to have a religious education at Immaculate. So I think we have to keep, we're doing a good thing by correcting some of the things that we think we need to correct in TOD, but I think we have to keep, looking into the future. Make the town better than you found it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay, well, I think that some of the things that happened to Bethel are the same things that happened to other mid-Atlantic states, that everything grew very rapidly and without a lot of planning, and there weren't regulations. So whatever somebody wanted to do, it was like, okay, let's put that there. And unfortunately, I think some of the little industrial areas in town that crept into the residential areas should not be where they are in the residential areas. I don't think it's attractive. I don't think it's conducive to people moving into those areas. So when we suddenly have a chance to do a little planned development, I think that we should really take that into consideration. And I'm not saying that what was originally suggested to us is the way to go, but we need to look at definitely the TOD and how to make it fit more with the character of the town. And I think that doing that will really improve this neighborhood and really bring up the value of the houses, the homes there. So that's where I am.
Can I just say one more thing? I really think that this commission has to stop and really look at what we have accomplished, really, because when Mr. Kershaw was up here spouting all the things that were wrong with this, I went to the website recently, and I looked at our numbers when it comes to affordable housing. And this commission over the years, and quite a few of us here, have been responsible, along with Beth and Nancy, and rewriting regulations and rating affordable housing. We're at 6.8 or 6.6%. And there are very, very few towns in Connecticut who have that affordability that we have. And it's something to be very proud of. And I think that was part of what TOD was supposed to also do, was to help bring more affordable housing to the downtown area, not only for that, so our young people and our older people would have a place. Okay, John, you can smile now. We have a place to walk downtown, to do our shopping, to take my little cart to Bethel Food, and only to have the one car and maybe just walking. But it's something we should be proud of, because I think we've done a good job. I'm going to pat us on the back. So there you go, guys. I'm done.
So. Is that,
Go ahead, Beth.
you think you have, do you?
Can
have a
I,
consensus?
may I just one more little thing?
Yeah,
I would like to wait until the next meeting. Because I would hope that Paul and Rich Tibbetts could also be a part of this. You don't think, or we should just move forward right
I
away?
need a consensus because of
Okay.
our time schedule that we're
Oh,
dealing with
okay.
now.
Okay, I thought we had more time.
We're running.
Okay, right. Okay, then I can vote, yeah.
Teensy thing. Based
I
on
mean,
what somebody
a
said at the
consensus.
last meeting, based on what somebody said at the last meeting, that I really took to heart. Which is, the Bethel we moved into. For all practical purposes in 1979. In its underlying ethos and its existence and its essence. Is still the Bethel that we have.
Mhm.
I walk down Greenwood Avenue. And even if they don't know my name, we wave. And what somebody said at the last meeting really struck me, which was, yes, and if we can do growth in a coordinated, carefully planned way, I think it's incumbent on us to do it. So that's it.
Thank you.
You're supposed to say the person you're quoting, so over here, I'm quoting.
My only comments are, as many of you, I came here from elsewhere. I came to Bethel 28 years ago this month. And it was the best move we have ever made. It's been a great place to raise a family. We've seen progression, we've seen growth, but I think it's growth in a managed way. And I, for one, believe that this change is a good idea. And that with some limitation on what's to be proposed there, along with Kitty's comments relative to height and green space. I'm really concerned about the amount of green space. That this would be a good thing for Bethel and the people who live here. It'll bring new people, and new is good as far as I'm concerned. I'm not a townie because I haven't been here long enough, but
Then can I say old is better? Because I'm the townie.
yeah, you're the townie.
I'm not even in a town.
I'm not a townie.
Uh-oh. Bob's
Yeah.
got something, he's got
Go ahead,
something
Bob.
to tell.
Go ahead, Bob.
And I'm not even considered a townie yet.
I know you've been here a lot longer than I have.
40 years.
And Bob's here longer than I
How
am.
does a state of mind? It's not what people tell you you are, it's what you believe.
So, only comment. I think with managed
Thank you.
growth, we're going in the right direction.
Okay, so
So I think we have a consensus to move forward.
Mhm.
with one
negative.
That's one negative.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And are you seated? No,
No, it's not
okay.
seated.
So the voting members, I have to go by the voting members of the commission. So you have 1, 2, you have 4 and 1. Okay, so I'll do a resolution of
Just wait.
5
5 and 1,
Oh, Bob.
5 and 1, 6 and 1. We have 6 and 1. I'm sorry about that.
5 dozen of the end.
Okay, and so I'll do a resolution of approval. I think to ease some of your minds, what I'll do is I'll use some of the recommendations that you're making.
Please do.
I believe maybe the applicant is on the call, and I'm sure that they will listen and take those into considerations.
Guidance is,
I have the resolution for you at the next meeting.
best guidance is always good.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's it for them. I'm good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Next item. 20 Worcester Street.
I'm working on that right now, Peter.
I can talk for a little bit.
Do you want me to have the plans ready to go? Okay.
You're not feeling well, or you're afraid of us?
I have a non-COVID flu, which do still exist. I figured learning some lessons. I wouldn't cough all over you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My mom made it for me, so. Good evening, my name is Peter Olson. I'm an attorney here in Bethel with an office at 275 Greenwood Avenue. I'm here tonight on behalf of Maria Spoliero. I think Maria's son Sal is on the Zoom, although he got kicked out for the executive session and I don't know if he was able to get back in, but you've already heard our presentation on this. It was the first night when we presented our site plan to you. It is a site plan application only. We didn't need to follow the rules for public hearings and the limitations on how long that takes. We should just keep rolling along. But the engineers and the health department had comments, the town engineer, for us after that last meeting. And we took some time and responded to them. We got more comments, we responded again, got more comments, and we responded again. We think at this point we've responded to all the comments that we got from the health department and from the town engineer. And in fact, the town engineer provided a memo to you today saying that all of his current concerns have been addressed. And we're very pleased with that. Just to refresh yourself, we're talking about 20 Worcester Street, which is right there. You can see it. We're closed. It's currently improved with one structure that has 2 units in it. There's been some question about how many bedrooms in those unit, and what I want to tell you is that the first floor is a 2-bedroom unit, despite what's shown on the field plan. It's only 2 bedrooms.
First floor meaning ground level or?
Ground level.
Okay, so
Ground level. The second floor is also
Part
a
of it's in the
2-bedroom unit, but it has a, I'm sorry?
part of it's in the basement, right?
Yes,
Right.
yeah. The second floor, the upstairs, is also a 2-bedroom unit, but it has a small additional room that could be considered a bedroom. Right now, it's rented to one person. That who occupies it, and as soon as that person moves out, it's going to be renovated and will only be 2 bedrooms. So I just wanted to clarify that that's the status of the existing structure. We're proposing a new structure that's right next door that will have 3 units in it until we get a total of 5. So that's the proposal. I'm going to have Dinah talk about the discussions with the town engineer on the changes that he made to the plan to accommodate those concerns.
That's a fun question.
Yes,
That's city store down there.
yes. Yep. Thanks. Let's go over. Well, I don't know. It's hard with the share.
You come over here, you have to talk louder so we get you on the recording.
Okay, for the record, Dinas Lubick is professional engineer with our Tel Engineering Group here on behalf of the applicant as well. And our firm worked with the architect and worked with the land surveyor and the team to put together the plan. The map that is on the screen now is the existing conditions survey map. You scroll down to the next map. This is the site plan, which we had to make some modifications to address comments from the health department as well as from the town engineer. And so a lot of back and forth, but ultimately it appears, just minor changes. And I'll point out some of the changes. There was a request that we make or install a sidewalk from the rear parking all the way out to the front sidewalk that runs along Worcester Street. So we've added in, as David is showing, the sidewalk running all along the way from the rear to the front.
Right, it's just point out where the handicap unit is.
Yep, so the handicap unit is located in the rear of the building. Access to the handicap unit is straight from the offload space and directly into the rear of the building. That's a ground floor level unit that's accessible. And again, the sidewalk itself was placed there so that although not deemed accessible in that it exceeds 5% grade, it is a sidewalk that runs all the way and connects to the town sidewalk system. The engineering department had also requested some clarifications on the retaining wall that's proposed along the back. So we've added that information to the detail sheet. Also, there was a question regarding snow storage on the site, to which we've got, you know, a little bit of green space at the head end of the parking spaces that are proposed on the site.
Can I ask a question here?
Yes, sir.
How much green space between the end of the parking lot and the property line? Doesn't look like it's much.
No, it's not a lot at all. I mean, so to the property line itself is about 6 feet, tapering down to about 2 as you get to the
And is that it,
south.
other than the front yard?
Pardon me?
Is that it, other than the front yard?
Oh, with respect to landscaping? I mean, so landscaping on the site would be in the front yard, in front of the units, along the north property line and the south property line. And, you know, a little bit of landscaping in between the units themselves. We do have a landscape plan, and I have a colored rendering if you wish me to share. But whatever isn't concrete and building is landscaped.
How close are the buildings to each other?
They're about 6 feet apart. If you could scroll in there. Yeah, 6 feet.
You can almost reach out and touch it.
Yeah, during your family gatherings, reach out and touch. A comment that we had to address for the health department was, if you could scroll back out a little bit, is trash receptacle areas. Originally, we had, or at one point, we had proposed a trash area somewhat removed from the building. There was a question as to where we would put snow storage. So what we did is we eliminated the enclosure area that was along the west property line, and we've now tucked it in to a little concrete enclosure right behind the building, which makes it convenient for all the tenants that would be living there. And these are little toter type containers. I think there's 64 or 96 gallons. I don't recall which size we put in, but typical ones, 6 containers, which can be a mix of trash and recycle depending on what the tenant usage ends up being. And these can be easily accessed from the sidewalk, and once a week they can be rolled up to the front for pickup. So a good comment and I think a good resolution to that health department comment. The engineer had other questions about some drainage. They wanted the little tweaks to that, and they wanted a construction sequence added to the plans, which we did. There was a question as to how are the people going to live in the units while construction is taking place. So we've incorporated that into notes on the plans. But primarily the biggest challenge would be having a place to park during the construction. So, you know, first thing that would happen would be the driveway would be widened out a bit. It's already quite wide here, so people can actually park on the edge now and bypass. So it'll be a short while where things might be a little congested here, but once construction is underway, drainage system will be installed. Then the stone course for the parking area will be built, and then residents here can park in the back with plenty of room for construction vehicles and so on. And that about touches on all the comments that were made.
Could I see that map that shows the green space? You said you had a colored map.
Sure.
I'd like to see it.
And Elizabeth from my office would love for me to say that, yes, I showed it.
Oh, yes.
So,
I can vouch for that.
Yeah, lots of green space there.
Yeah.
so I mean, it's as good as we can get it with the property itself.
It's too bad you couldn't have put balconies on so they could have put their little barbecues outside. But they're not gonna have any place to do it here.
Definitely don't want barbecues on.
You don't want to encourage that.
No, well,
Little hibachis,
where I grew up in an apartment, sorry, and we had a balcony and we had a barbecue on it. And my father barbecued every night.
yeah, so we don't want to encourage that.
But it was still.
We want to make things exciting for Tom Gallagher.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, this is what we've got. And now I can tell Elizabeth I shared.
Mr. Rebecca, if I may ask, do you have a copy of that to submit for the record, or can you submit that electronically?
You can have this copy.
Okay.
Suitable for framing.
Just to follow up on the snow storage, we did submit an email from our landscaping company that currently handles it now. And the email says that can remove any snow that does not room store at that moment. So,
That makes sense.
If it doesn't say it,
That's in the drive.
Sorry?
That's in the drive, the Google Drive.
Right.
Now also the comment that at the beginning of this process, the village architect and looking at how to review the architectural. And as far as I know,
Were concerned expressed by me
about
architecture.
in your memo,
Yes.
but I don't think Alyssa had suggested any concerns.
No, she did not.
Okay. Do you want to address your concerns? You can. Time, I guess. Bring it up again.
Scroll back, scroll.
David?
Yes, I'm trying to get there, Beth. Can you recall which sheet, Beth?
No, it would have been under town comments.
Oh, okay, understood.
All right, my suggestion, due to the lateness of the evening, is that I would ask the commission to come to a consensus of this application. As far as my comments regarding 20 Worcester Street, I'm looking for them into, yeah. It basically was dealing with some tweaking of the architecture on the proposed building. Disagreeing with Alyssa in regards to making it look like a modern farmhouse similar to 10 Worcester Street. Again, I apologize. I was concentrated on other matters this evening. But again, it was dealing with the vertical site
Oh, okay.
and the modern farmhouse concept that was proposed versus what was adjacent to it in the surrounding area.
Okay.
And directly next door, to go back to more of a you can see it in there. Also dealing with the front porch of the adjacent property. Also dealing with breaking it up along the side with some type of fascia or, but again, I'm sorry, guys, I know you're all anxious. We've got a lot of business to do, but I would ask for you to do a consensus on the status of this, so I can at least have a form of a resolution of denial or approval for the next meeting. I think we are at that
If you'd
point.
like to have this, like us to have an additional architectural discussion, we're happy to do that.
Okay.
So we want to make that a condition of an approval, that we come and talk with staff and the village district architects and tweaks. But
Well, I would look at this and see what you can give us from there before we go that route.
yeah, but I can't do that tonight. 'cause I'm not-
No, I know you
because
can't.
I'm not an architect.
I know you can.
Yeah.
Thoughts, questions?
Well, this is TOD, so we really can't say no. Correct?
You can say no.
Okay.
I mean, you can certainly say no.
But, I mean, this is an example of TOD with maximum coverage. This is what we're gonna get. We're gonna get dozens of these. single family houses or two families, and there's gonna be no green space left. And this is what we're gonna get, so just be prepared.
I mean, now, how many apartments is it?
So there's two existing,
Right,
we're proposing 3 more. And the zone would allow 8. But I know you've heard this from me before, the triangle of density, parking and green space is very hard to turn into a square. So we brought it down to 5 units because that's what fit on the site. You know, my pitch to you, as always, is reduce parking requirements for things like 1-bedroom units and you get more green space.
okay, that's not fair to the people who would have the units, because they're saying, well, you should only have 1 car.
Yes.
Well, no, that's not going to work,
Well, but we put
because
that,
that doesn't, people move, a husband and wife move in, and he goes here to go to work, and she goes there to go to work. They have to have a way to do that. And so that's not going to
the
work.
way that we respond to that is we put a requirement in the lease that says you're allowed 1 parking space for your unit. And there's plenty of people out there to rent these. That someone who needs 2 parking spaces goes and finds a place that's willing to provide an empty parking space.
Or maybe just making the building a little bit smaller so there's more green space.
The making the building smaller or reducing the number of units wouldn't increase the green space. In any significant way.
You would lose 2 parking spaces.
Perhaps,
And that's an 18 by 9, multiply that out to whatever that comes to.
Yeah, that would make more sense to me.
Sure.
Did you have any questions or comments? You probably couldn't hear me. David, can you repeat the question?
Mr. Legnard, do you have any questions or comments for this application?
No, I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Thank you. Do we have a consensus on which direction we'd like to go?
I'd like to move forward.
I would agree with the consideration of the architectural modifications as discussed.
Pick somebody else.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna vote no. No, I don't. I think it's too crowded. I'd like to see it's more.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in favor, and
Just me.
so Beth, if you could prepare letter of approval.
Okay.
With some requirements around the architectural design or requests or stipulations or however.
Well, there's stipulations I know in the engineers memo, and I'll incorporate all of them into it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Thanks.
Good night.
Yeah.
Nice red.
It's Valentine's Day, it's killing us all.
Additional public input.
I have a question.
What's the name, address?
About,
We have public comments now? I know Beth has it. Yeah,
Commission.
well,
Commission comments,
Render-
public input.
Commission comment.
Render
public input.
okay.
okay.
Sure.
Dan White from Diamond down in. Did you just vote to approve the zone change or to move to approve the zone change?
What they did was they took a consensus,
Yes.
and they're asking staff to do a resolution of approval
Okay, so.
for the zone change only.
Right.
Okay.
Um,
You cannot discuss
I know.
the dynamics of the application because it is still under consideration by the board.
I'm turning my pencil down.
If you haven't, I'm sorry, I'm gonna start being a little pushy,
I know, no.
only because it's 9:30 at night.
Okay. 8:30 G.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
At 8:30 G.
Oh, the one before.
Oh. I'm sorry, they just have to abide by some of
I
these
know.
statutes
I
that
know, I almost wish I'd voted.
allow. Okay. Thank you, Allison.
Beth, do you have a planner's report for us?
Yes, I do.
Oh, wait a second. Was there anybody on Zoom who had any additional input?
I see Diane Ryan's hand raised, Mr. Chairman.
All right, if it starts going south, a discussion about actions, I will intervene because you can't jeopardize decisions.
Diane, you're on.
Diane Ryan, 13 Karen Drive. I had the same question that Allison, I think, or whoever just spoke. I heard you each talk about what you thought, but I did not hear an actual vote. So that's kind of a point of order. Didn't hear a vote.
Diane, I will be more than happy to explain that to you, Diane. What we ask for is a consensus of the commission. In other words, what the commission is doing is giving staff a direction to write a resolution. It does not mean that the commission has approved the resolution, but it gives staff an indication that they want to review this at the next meeting. They could agree with it, or they could decide to deny it, to say no.
Okay, so the actual vote happens then at the next
Did not
meeting.
happen. It will happen at the next meeting.
Right, okay.
All right.
The other question I had is, you guys referred to some materials that were given to you by Beth on number of people that go in different, whether they're in a apartment building versus a home. Isn't that material that the public should also see? Any materials that Beth gives you?
Okay, Diane, my suggestion to you, we have to, and I keep interrupting, and please understand, the reason I interrupt, it's my job to protect the commission from not speaking negatively or positively after the close of a public hearing or accepting more information after a close of a public hearing. The information that the commission is referring to can be found in the Google Drives. If you
It's
need
not there.
that,
It's not, Beth, a lot is not there. Beth, a lot of the things that you are giving them are not being put on the Google Drive.
Diane, my suggestion to you is to call me at the office tomorrow and I'll go over with you where you can find the materials.
I've gone onto the materials, I've gone onto your link, and sometimes there are things that are not there that I, for example, at one of the meetings, now this has nothing to do with the public hearing, you're talking about classes you want them to go to. The public should be aware of what those are. We should be aware of what those classes are, who is giving them, when they're being given, what it's about. Otherwise, we're not totally aware of what's happening.
Okay, Diane, I don't want to get in an argument with you. All I'm gonna tell you this evening is that it's not a requirement that everything be put in a Google Drive pertaining to a legal notice or an application. That the town of Bethel has taken it upon themselves to try to do their best to make information available to the general public. Again, please contact our office to pick up or review whatever materials you feel are missing from the Google Drive. Thank you for your comments.
Anyone else?
I'm not seeing anyone else that has their hand raised at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Yeah, planner.
Oh, wait, I'm Paula Angelini, I'm sorry.
Good evening, Commission. I have one quick question and then a comment.
Please, and your address.
Oh, I'm sorry, Paul Angelini, 19 Jacobs Lane. My question is, the consensus being done, can that be done before public comment? In other words, you're kind of giving your probable vote so they can take a direction to the applicant, but that's done before public comment?
The commission has just completed or in the middle of deliberations pertaining to applications where the public hearings have been closed. So therefore, any of their comments that are making are amongst themselves in order to come to a decision. Public comment is over That's why I'm being very stern and being very careful to answer those questions that you have. So it does not lead the commission into a direction that they should not go to at this point.
Okay, I probably should have clarified. Is the Worcester project closed? The hearing closed? I didn't think there was
What's the
one.
public hearing, Paula?
Excuse me?
There was no public hearing, that was a site plan.
Right, so you just took a consensus on that, correct?
Correct.
So my question was, can you do that before you have, well, I guess, a public hearing? Then that's my question, and public comment.
Okay, so you've answered your own question, Paula?
How did I do that? Part of your answer was cut out, the connection cut out, so I didn't hear everything you said. So if I'm like,
She thinks there's still a public hearing going on for.
No,
Worcester
there is
Street.
no public hearing.
No
for
public
Worcester
hearing.
Street.
None.
I don't know that. My question is, can you have a consensus before a public hearing or public comment? Is that the process? That's all I want to know.
I don't understand your question, Paula.
You just took a consensus on Worcester.
Yes, that was during the review of a site plan application before the commission.
No public hearing.
Yes, so you can do that before a public hearing. So the public hearing didn't happen yet.
It's not required. Thank you.
Consensus before public comment too, right?
It's not required, Paula.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, are you ready to move on to the next step? All right, first of all, the first thing I want to do is add an item, a very important item to the agenda, and that is the appointment of David McCullum as the assistant zoning official for the town of Bethel, zoning enforcement official for the town of Bethel. And if you agree with that, I would put that in the form of a motion because you're the ones that are actually making that appointment. So you have to do it, not me. And if you don't do it, I will.
Long time.
If the commission needs someone for me to speak to them.
I would like to make a motion to make David.
I made a motion.
Assistant
Zoning enforcement officer.
Officer.
Second,
Yes.
all in favor?
David wants to speak.
Wait, nays.
You're in, Dave. You're in the.
Thank you. Abstentions.
Thank you. It's not a speech. I would just like to give some context to, yes, so that's my intent. So I have been taking Connecticut Association of Zoning Enforcement Officers classes. I have just passed the second course for that. And I have my case study left to go, and once I complete that, then I will be officially recognized by CASI as being a zoning enforcement officer. Part of the requirements for that is I have to be a zoning official, in this case, an assistant, for me to meet that last requirement, or part of that last requirement. So that's why Beth had to do that tonight. So thank you very much.
We will. Thank you.
We'll double the pay you're getting for it now.
He's taking us all out to breakfast, Bob.
Okay.
Jacqueline's tomorrow morning.
In regards to one of the comments made at a previous hearing, of using electronic equipment.
What was that
I will
about?
take care of that tomorrow and give you a clarification if needed at the next meeting. If
Thank you.
needed, okay. Lastly, in the drive, you'll also find, I promised you that I would start with the regulations.
Mhm.
On revisions and things of that nature. If you can stand 2 minutes, I'll pass them out and give you the skinny.
And then one other quick item. and we can move that.
Okay, I forgot something. I'm sorry.
No, it's 20 minutes to 10. How could you remember?
What time do you go night night? I
No.
don't go night night till
You don't need
later.
a copy yet. Did you? Do you have enough copies? Do you need more?
Yeah.
All right, it's getting fresh now. You're good? Okay. So what I want you to do is go to, when you get a chance in your regulations, go to the section called conventional standards. Okay, when you go to that, you're gonna look at the top portion of it. Those are your dimensional standards, right? Single, tower, two-family, townhouse, tuck under, urban villa, so on and so forth. So what if the first item I think you wanted me to address was the dimensional standards summary table. So what we're saying is those dimensional standards summary table applies to the underlying zone, commercial and industrial, okay? The exception to this is pertaining to height. The maximum allowance, you want to change the maximum allowance for height from 4 stories to 3 stories. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the other issue that you wish to address, which I think that I can't really talk about it, but the item that you wish to address is dealing with the underlying zone of residential single family, double R10, and residential multiple office zone under the dimensional standard requirements, okay? So what we're gonna say is we're putting a special exception, meaning that only under section 1, which it specifically says single family, and section 2 and section 3, I'm sorry, where it says 2 families. Those are the only allowable uses within an R10, double R10, or an RMO zone. And those dimensional standards have to be followed. And those dimensional standards are found in the following the pages associated with it. So that lastly, you talked about residential uses, mostly meaning residential uses in a multifamily zone. And also, there was one other zone, and I'm not gonna go for it now, I can't remember. Reducing the density in the TOD, you wanted it reduced from 30 units to 20 units.
Right.
And those applications would apply to the industrial and commercial zone. Now, if you want to consider this, or at least put it on the table for consideration, I would suggest that you schedule a public hearing. This is a starting point. It's not the end all.
Right.
This is the very beginning of the starting point. But I think you need to give some comfort to yourselves in the decisions that you make, and also to the general public. With those changes.
Can I ask for clarification?
Absolutely.
So,
I mean,
I'll get you quick. Dimensional standards. This would have changed the trajectory on what you wrote.
you cannot discuss what you wrote or ask a question in regards to that pertaining to this.
Okay, so if I was gonna build a building in an RR10 zone currently, and I was gonna make it 3.5 stories. If this regulation was enacted, my building could only be 2.5 stories.
Your building could only be 2.5 stories, like a single family home.
If I were gonna build can we talk about Diamond Avenue? Is that free to talk about?
No.
No,
No?
because you
Okay.
haven't finalized the decision on the
Okay.
zone change.
Okay.
This is difficult. But I think you really want to get this done.
So next meeting of the month.
What my suggestion is that you take this, because it can change. You know, it's a document, you're putting it out there, it's not in stone, but with input from the general public. And I'm sure you will hear from attorneys, engineers, and those. Let's do a public hearing. Let's put it on the table and see where it goes.
The question was for the public hearing for our next scheduled meeting
No,
or one.
the earliest you can have a public hearing is March 28th.
Okay. I make a motion that we have a public hearing for a review of the proposed PRD changes on March 28th.
Second.
All in favor?
The-
Nays? Abstentions? So moved.
And the reason for that is there's some statutory requirements that have to be met, and it takes 145 days on meeting.
There was one other topic we were going to cover, but we can table it to the next meeting. You had indicated at the last meeting to the commission, when I question was asked by Mr. Chandler. What the process was for the moratorium in place.
I'm sorry, I gave that directly to Mr. Shanley.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you
And
very much.
he is not okay this evening, but I did review with him, and he knew that the regulations were available for him to look at.
Thank you.
Points longer than years.
Make a motion
Please.
to.
Public,
Second.
We
public,
did the public.
no. That's usually the,
General big public
it's usually the
One
last
question,
thing.
and I
I
promise.
know it should be, and I read it and I opened it to the public.
Allison
You
St.
got it.
Clair,
You gotta ask.
can I make
If you can, and I hate to be a pain in the, I
30
haven't had dinner.
seconds? 30-second question, Allison St. Germain, 14 Elgin Avenue. Question, can plans be submitted under the old regs between now and March 28th?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. John Cranky,
30 seconds.
Motion to adjourn.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
No, so moved.